With goalkeepers, it's a slightly bigger area, and that gives you different returns in terms of the physical demands, but also the players that are pressing, covering, and now we're looking at balance. So if the ball is played out this side, hello, my name's Chris Sulley. I'm an FA youth coach developer in the northwest of England. Today we're going to be looking at pressing, and the key skills that we're looking at are press, cover and balance. And the skills that are involved in that, we'll sort of drip feed those through as we go through the session. It'll be aimed at, I would say, from 12 upwards, but you could, if you've got advanced players, I think, introduce it to your foundation phase. And it could be applied indoor or outdoor. I've used all this area to sort of try and demonstrate. I appreciate that most of you are probably being on a quarter of a pitch, and you can adapt it to that sort of size of area. The objectives of the session are press, cover and balance. And there'll be some communication and some other areas that we'll cover, but they're the three main things that we're looking for. So the first session, we'll need 6 players in an area about 10 by 8. So if we have 4 players on the corner of an area here, and we'll have 2 players defending. The ball starts at one end, and the idea is that they pass the ball to each other with the idea of trying to play forward into the 2 players at the other end. The defenders, as the ball starts with one player in the corner, you're trying to get in a position where you're forcing the ball to one way. They can't tackle, they can only intercept. So if the ball is slow enough, they could intercept, but otherwise they've just got to press and cover. And the key detail here is the speed and angle of approach of the presser and the recovery position of the second player, so that they're not just running straight back, and that opens up a big area to play between them. So they are now looking to try and condense that space so that they're making the opposition play in front of them. How you might progress this or adapt this is that you would then add some competition. So how many times can you intercept or force a mistake with the passing to each of the 4 players? I would suggest that you don't go further than 30 seconds at a time, maybe 45 seconds depending on how fit or the age that you're looking at. But it's quite demanding physically, this up and back, so it takes its toll on the thighs and the legs, so give them plenty of breaks. And you might want to put one of the players in charge of that time, so when they feel tired they could say change, and then they would come out and the fresh pair would come into the middle. So with that first practice, if you've got odd numbers, you might need to put 3 players at one end, and then the players have got to move appropriately to press and cover. And you might need to set up obviously 2 or 3 of these areas so that all the players are working at the same time. If you've got another coach working, that would be really good, so that you can manage it between the 3 groups. Okay, so we're going to move into now a 3v3 practices, and again time this for between 3 and 5 minutes, because physically it's quite demanding. With goalkeepers, it's a slightly bigger area, and that gives you different returns in terms of the physical demands, but also the players that are pressing, covering, and now we're looking at balance. So if the ball is played out this side, this is the nearest player to press, this player's now on the cover, so this principle of being able to be just backward of square of your partner, and then this player offers a little bit of balance in case they play 1-2s or the ball is switched and then you're changing roles. So there's some decision making about when to press, so you might look for triggers to actually press slow passes, a misplaced pass, a pass that the player on the ball turns towards their own goal. So there might be some little triggers that you might want to drip in for the players to recognise. In this game, the 3v3 is in a much tighter area, and all you're trying to do is stop the ball getting into your end zone. So now you're trying to, the players are that much closer that they can almost work consistently all the time. So again, that leads into managing the physical load of that. And again, once you've decided how you're going to manage that on time, on interventions, you then swap over. So they both get an experience of those returns that you get from each of those practices. You've got your goalkeepers involved, try and get them to think about sweeper keeping and talking to the defenders. These 3 practices you could actually set up as a carousel type practice. So they bounce from one session to another because you've got your 6 in each, and then they obviously get a turn doing each one. They then move into a 7v7, so goalkeepers in here. And the idea of this practice is that when you're in possession, you can go into these wide areas, these dotted wide areas, but the opposition, the defending team, can only go in there once the ball's played in and the nearest player can then engage. So you get the idea of if they win it back, the Blues then become the players that have to narrow up and be compact, and now the Yellows can move into those wide areas and attack using the full width of the pitch. So again, we're looking to transfer some of the key points from these 3 practices into this game. Are they picking the right moments when to press? Are they picking the right moments around when the ball changes to another player, that they are now changing their roles? They are now the presser and the other player becomes the covering player. Is there some communication? We're getting different returns from these individual practices here, but as we said, we could do them as a carousel, but on here, because it's slightly bigger, the players do get a little bit of a respite, and there is a bit of a more decision to make in terms of when to press and how to press. And on this one, because it's 3v3 and it's close, they're in the game all the time, so there's a constant movement and they're constantly in the game. You may get some kind of recovery runs in this because it's a little bit bigger, so therefore you might concentrate on that ability to get back behind the ball as quickly as possible. And on this area here, again, depending on the size that you use, you might get some recovery runs, you will get some more communication from behind, hopefully, and players' decision making about when and where to press. A progression to this practice now is making the pitch bigger, so slightly longer, and putting a halfway line in so that you've got offside applies. That will encourage your defenders to push up, or the team out of possession to push up, and your goalkeeper to be the sweeper keeper. And then can they apply that pressure? The same rules apply. Once the ball goes into a wide area, can they engage them? Can they win it back? Once it goes back in the field, they have to come back inside and be compact. So they can't go into these wide areas until the ball has gone in. But it just makes the game ebb and flow a little bit more and makes it a little bit more realistic when you introduce the offside. And it encourages people at the back to talk to the people in front of them to put the pressure on, because then otherwise they'll be encouraged the team in possession will be encouraged to play in behind because they've got time and space to do that.